Welcome everyone to the webinar, Finding Your Financial Footing in the Middle of the Pandemic. My name is Christine Rossi-Wright and I am the Senior Program Worker at the AFC. I come from a background in musical theater. I did that roughly over 10 years ago, but I hold a Master of Social Work degree and I'm a registered social worker in Ontario. And in my role at the AFC, I coordinate client intake and applications for the Emergency Financial Aid Program and provide direct social work services to support our clients. The AFC is a nonprofit organization providing support to entertainment industry professionals, helping them to maintain their health, dignity, and ability to work. And this video is part of the Financial Wellness Program, which is open to all members of the industry. The program links industry professionals to resources and services, produces materials like this video, and offers a monthly e-zine with links and tips for staying on top of your financial health. The Financial Wellness Program is made possible by the support of Richard Rooney and Laura Dinner, and you can sign up to join this program at afchelps.ca. So now I'm going to bring it over to Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Enns. I'm an opera singer and certified financial planner. I work at a firm called Rags to Reasonable, which is where I work with people throughout the creative industry and lots of people with non-traditional financial pictures to help them belong in their finances and feel more confident in their money. And I think I've been able to work with the AFC a bunch over the last couple of years, and I'm so happy to be here with Christine specifically because we've been having a lot of conversations over the last 6 months, just as our co-work with the creative industry has been really through this pandemic and through this financial disaster for our sector. And it's been really interesting to speak with her from kind of her background in social work, and from my side of the financial and kind of the conversations that we've been having and the different way that we look at this work. Because as we look to gain financial footing in the middle of a pandemic, something about that middle of the pandemic feels both true and just kind of hits me right there. It's not just financial. It's not just about numbers. There's such a huge emotional component as well. And our creative sector has been hit so hard. And I know that just speaking for myself, what I'm hearing from people that are calling, it's not money first. It's this overwhelming sense of just the emotions that are connected to that. Is that the case for you, Christine? Like, what are you hearing from people as you're just having these discussions with people in the industry right now?
Oh yeah, it is. It's very emotional. They feel a lot of shame and a lot of guilt around their finances, and specifically around the debt load that they started carrying, which is a lot more than what they had prior to this pandemic. And there's a lot of negativity associated with that they feel. Mm-hmm. And then when they reach a certain point where they have to ask for help, that's another layer where it's, oh my gosh, now I need to ask for help. Yeah. Is more vulnerability that they're putting themselves through. And I know a lot of my clients, one of the first things they say to me is, this took a lot for me to call you. Like, I do not want to call you. And to me, that shows so much courage. You took that step to ask, talk about it. That vulnerability is courage. It's, and I understand that talking about finances is like opening up that proverbial raincoat. It's putting yourself in that very vulnerable, uncomfortable situation. So I get that. And that's where I'm going to live while we go through this this video with you.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight, just finances can feel so isolating, and especially in the middle of a crisis when your world gets really, really small, and it can feel like I should have really fill in the blank. I should be better. I should have prepared for this. You are not the only one that's going through this. You are not the only one taking on debt to get by. You are not the only one feeling ashamed and isolated about your money. We don't talk about money. And so when there's a financial crisis and there's an issue that we have to ask for help, there's none of that framework. And so just to say that you're not alone. And the other kind of emotion that I've heard a lot is just this collective grief in our industry of just, what was supposed to be, what might be coming, and the major changes that might be kind of coming in, and letting go of that. That's the wrong phrase, but how difficult it is to kind of let go of what it was supposed to be, even 6 months in. I think it's a lot to carry around, and then carry into this conversation of, how do I pay my bills? How do I know if I'm okay? How long am I okay for? It's a really, really difficult thing. And so what we wanted to do with this video and today is just to kind of give you a place to start. All of you are going to be in different positions. You might have different questions coming in, but where we can start looking at this from a financial perspective is to say, where are you right now? And just assess what is in front of you, without kind of adding the extra question right away of like, well, what do I do next? Or how do I fix this? Just start with saying, okay, where am I? What do I have? What do I need? And then once you have kind of some answers and some numbers around that, then we can start taking ourselves into those next questions and answering them based on something a little bit more. And so we want to have that discussion a little bit today, and both guide you through the financial side, how to think through that, but also try to give you some tools for the emotional side and to kind of manage some of the things that may come up as you start kind of sorting through that. Right, Christine?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And we want to, I know our goal just from talking with you, Chris, and I just want to say it again, is we want to create a safe space for this conversation. So this is a safe space. And another thing is, a lot of people don't think that your emotions and your finances are connected, but they are heavily connected. And I will be, we'll talk about that further, but just wanted to say that up front.
All right.
I wanted to start with, because, we've been talking about how it is really difficult to talk about our finances. I really wanted to start with a grounding exercise, just to kind of set the tone. Let's bring our breath down. We've said it many times since the beginning, talking about your finances is very stressful and possibly an anxiety provoking topic, which I totally get. It is for me. If I can be completely honest, it's an anxiety-provoking thing for me as well. So I want to start with a grounding exercise to connect you to your breath, calm your nervous system, and allow you to refocus your mind so we can be present for this discussion. So if you look on the slide, you're going to see there's a square, and you've probably heard of this. It's called square breathing. Square breathing. So you can visualize a square. You can use a square on the screen. And what we're going to do 3 rounds. We're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and then we're going to repeat. So let's start. We're going to inhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, exhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, inhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, exhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, inhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, exhale 4, 3, 2, 1, hold 4, 3, 2, 1, and just let it go.
Well, I found that really helpful. I think that I had not heard of square breathing before. Christine introduced this to me as we were planning this video, and I've been using it all the time. It's really, really helpful to just take a moment, ground yourself, and then kind of come back into something. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome.
So on the financial side, the first stop when we're trying to assess where you are, and this is both in the middle of a crisis or not, is we start to look at needs. And so first of all, let me just define need. When I say need, I don't mean the least amount that you can live on and still stay vertical. I talk about need as you get to define that question, that kind of what that is. And it's a happy, healthy version of you. What do you need? It's not going to match up for everyone. One of the big questions as we start looking at numbers that people have for me is like, is this too much? Is this not enough? What should I be spending? I don't have goal numbers in my head for any of these things. That's not how I believe about spending. I believe spending on purpose is the core. And then what's possible as far as balancing. But when you're looking at this assessing, it's just about saying like, what is the truth? So when we start to kind of put numbers around here, it's hard to kind of put numbers. A lot of us in the creative industry don't have a great relationship with numbers. And so it can feel stressful, even just to start talking about numbers, adding things up. It's like a monster under the bed you just want to ignore. But one of the things that we end up doing then is we start asking ourselves these unsolvable questions. We say, I just need to spend more. Sorry, I just need to make more. I just need to spend less. And I just wish I had enough. And these are three questions that I still hear all the time during the last 6 months. But the problem is more than what? Less than what? And how much is enough? What we're doing to ourselves is we're creating unsolvable kind of amorphous blob questions. And the gift that numbers can provide us is actual problems to solve. And yes, they might be really stressful problems. They might be problems that you don't know how you're going to solve them. But they're something that you can actually start creating solutions around. And so that's why I encourage you to kind of use the gift of numbers and use the side of things that will actually help you start to get some clarity around this situation. And just like with breathing, create a moment where you feel some element of control in an area that feels very out of control. So when you're looking to figure out what you need, I'm going to throw up a slide here. This is a worksheet that I really like to use when I'm trying to figure out what I need and both for other people. And so you'll notice that I like to sort things into 4 big piles. The first one on the far left is fixed expenses. So this is, what is the same every month? So we're looking for expenses like rent. We're looking for expenses like utilities. We're looking for expenses like bank fees, maybe a car payment, memberships, Netflix, those type of things. This is like the numbers that are, whether you know them or not, they're the easiest ones to find because they exist and they're the same every month. That's the first big pile. Second big pile is what else happens every month, but the numbers change. So now we're into that realm of groceries. We're in the realm of, I usually say eating out, but these days maybe it's more like takeout or transportation if you still are transporting yourself anywhere these days. Those kind of things you're like, I know this happens every month, but the number changes. And this is a moment where it can start to get a little bit more difficult to come up with numbers. And so this is a moment I know that it can be easy to just be like, well, it's different every month. Like sometimes it's this and sometimes it's this. And so it's impossible and I just don't want to. It's okay. We don't need to get the exact spot on number right on the first go. It's not going to happen. But we can know more than we think we can know. And so what I encourage you to do is not look at the last 6 months of statements and add up all the things and come to your grocery spending. If you like doing that, do it. That's great. But if you're like, that's never going to be a thing you do. What I encourage you to do is come up with thoughtful numbers for these kind of things. So for grocery spending, think, okay, I go to the grocery store once a week here nowadays, trying to lower exposure. I spend $80 at the grocery store every week. Okay. That's a big shop. That's I think that's a normal shop. I'm just taking a guess. So that means I spend at least $80 times 4, because we're just saying a 4-week month. I know that some months are longer, but it's okay. We're just trying to get close enough. $320 a month. The reason I call that a thoughtful number is you didn't just write down a number that you thought, you kind of thought through the process a little bit, which means that next time you're at the grocery store and you do a normal shop, maybe you end up saying like, oh, it was closer to 100 and that felt normal. Oh, I was off. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this and change it. It's always important when you're writing down numbers to think that we're not trying to solve a math problem. numbers are a reflection of what's happening in your life. And so we need to kind of understand what's behind it and kind of think about that so that we know what it's actually reflecting. And we just want a placeholder for all these things. Take some guesses, but make them thoughtful guesses. So we kind of get a placeholder for all these numbers and we can start adding up and getting a sense of what is really enough. Worth mentioning, it's really tempting, especially when times are really tight, to start this exercise by editing in your head before things go on the paper. So you'll say, I know I spent on takeout, but I really shouldn't, so I'm going to put 0. That I can cut that. Don't start with what you think you should be going towards. Start with the truth. Start with, this is where I'm at. I spend $50 a week on takeout. I don't like that about my spending, or maybe you love that about your spending. Both are great. This is not like, there's no judgment call here, but just don't edit before. Try to get everything out on the page in front of you as the truth. And then later on, you can come through and start thinking about where there might be opportunities to shift things, if that's something you want. But start with the truth of it so that we can get a good sense of what you need. How's everybody's stress level? Spiking a little bit? Christine?
Yes, I started thinking about everything that you were going through. But for me, so I'm noticing when I'm, taking a introspective look at myself, I know my heart rate's going up and I'm sweating a little bit. So maybe we can take a little bit of a break here for a minute, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you and viewers how your breathing is going. Is it shallow? I know mine's a little bit shallow.
Mine got shallow. Like I can compare it to where we started, and I'm not thinking as introspectively as a listener would be right now, but it's like it is definitely higher. Yes.
And I know for myself, just thinking about this, when I look at numbers, trying to put numbers on, I sometimes get kind of irritable and a little worried and just kind of like tensed up a little bit. And I want you to check in on that. I know sometimes living your life day to day, you're noticing, you may not even notice these things because we're living on, autopilot, but these are signals of stress. So your body is feeling stress. Stress is not a bad thing. It can be a good thing, but we want to check in when we're feeling stressed. So I want to kind of check in on that. And let's just breathe. Just take some deep breaths. That can really center us. I know it's going to help me center myself while we're going into the next couple of columns on this worksheet. And one thing too, that it was probably the best thing I learned years ago, was when you're feeling stressed and you're having a hard time breathing, I don't want you to think about breathing in, because when you're breathing up here, you can't breathe in. So the first thing you want to do is breathe out. Want to breathe out. And then you have a place to breathe in and breathe out again. Now again, that second time while you're breathing, it might be still a little bit shallow, still a little bit, up here. But if we continuously do the cycle of out and then in, not in and out, it's going to help us to lower our breath, keep us calm, and center us. Now, I'm not saying that, you do it a couple of times and it's all fixed. We need to keep checking in with ourselves and practice these mindful grounding breathing techniques. I know they help for me. I know they work for my clients. So yeah, and another thing I really want to say is, if you're feeling this way, it's 100% normal. It's normal to feel uncomfortable and feeling stressed. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, but even outside of a pandemic, talking about finances, even living day to day, could be quite stressful. So if you need to take a pause for the video, please do come back. But yeah, maybe we can continue with the worksheet, Chris.
Perfect. And I think a great reminder on top of that is that you don't need to finish this in one sitting. And actually, maybe don't. Because especially if you haven't done this before, let it kind of chew around in your brain a little bit. Kind of familiarize yourself with the general scope of it, and then just kind of think, well, what do I spend every month? And as you kind of moving through your life, come back to it, add something. Come back to it and add something. I think too often we think about our finances as a problem to be solved, and we should be able to sit down and figure it out in half an hour, and then we're done with it. I wish, because that would actually be easier, but that's not the case. So give yourself that time and take those breaks and really listen to your body, because as we move in, this next kind of pile is one that we often ignore, especially when things are really hard and kind of really scarce, because our time frame gets really short. And so we think about, how do I get through this month? And that makes total sense. But one of the things that always can kind of bulldoze our finances a little bit are the things that happen every year, or more infrequently, but not every month. And so for some people, this might be some annual bills that come up once a year or a few times a year. There's some bills that come with utility management if you own your property, or if you pay those utilities, that might be 3 times a year. And then you forget about them and you're like, oh no, my sewage cost is $200 every 3 times a year, or an annual credit card fee, $120 in March. And you're like, oh, this is the worst possible time. So as you're gathering the cost of your life, the thing that we often forget are those things. And so taking some time to first think about some of those fees that come up, memberships, annual fees, things that are a little bit more infrequent, but also things like that you probably spend something on, but it's not, for lots of people, it's not every month. And so again, we can apply this idea of like, how much do I spend? I have no idea. Well, just think about it a little bit. I really like the idea of thinking about it really tactilely. So like this idea of saying, okay, how many, do I buy a pair of jeans every year? Maybe. Okay. So that's $100. At least it could be $50, whatever it is. Do I buy a new pair of shoes? Often, and then there's some incidental, some t-shirts. It doesn't have to be close, but start thinking granularly about some of those things instead of just writing down a number. I often hear from people when they're filling out some of these categories, especially gifts. If they don't think they spend a lot, they write $500 a year. And if they think they spend a lot, they write 1,000. Often people get gravity welled in these two numbers. And those could be right. But think about it. For gifts is another great example. So making a thoughtful number around that is to say, okay, in the next few months, is there anybody in my life, with my partner having a birthday? Am I going to spend some money on that? And you might say to me, Chris, I don't have any money. There's debt. I'm not going to buy a gift. But you also might say, I am. I know I am. It doesn't matter kind of how scarce things are. I'm going to spend $20 on that. And by seeing it coming a little bit, you can just work that into the arena. You can work out what do I know is coming? And how do I want to think about handling it now, and kind of include that into the cost of your life, because it's part of your accumulated stress. It's part of the things that are whirling around in your brain. And so externalizing it can really help. So trying to find numbers for those things. And the last big column is around your business. So some of this might apply to you and some of this might not. If you're self-employed, there may be some business costs that you're still running even if you're not working. Things like annual dues for guilds and organizations that you're a part of, things like casting workbook or IMDb or ACTRA dues that are really common for lots of actors. There might be equivalents in your business. So what are some of those things over there? Together, what this can start to give you is an idea of what you need. What do you need to be bringing in? At what point are you going to be okay? At what point are you kind of treading water? And at what point are you needing to draw something on? But just kind of figuring out that assessment tool first. What this worksheet encourages you to do is just look at the rest of 2020. So September, October, November, December. The next 4 months, what might come up? And then divide that number by 4 to give yourself an idea of an average amount that you might need per month in order to be okay. It won't come in that way. That's okay. But it gives you something for quick math to start thinking about things, and can be a really good first stop assessment tool. Does that make sense, Christine?
100%. 100%. Thank you. So I wanted to just kind of take a little bit of a break from that and just kind of talk about how mental health plays a role in finances. Now, I know we've kind of talked about it throughout since the beginning, and I wanted to just iterate a little bit more that, these two go hand in hand. They literally are like this. They are more intertwined than you think, and certain situations may trigger anxiety or stress. For example, when you speak to somebody at your bank, that could cause a very stressful situation. Going to your mailbox and getting a piece of mail, that could cause a very stressful situation, a piece of mail from your bank statement, or a disconnection notice or something. Perhaps watching this video is causing you some stress and some anxiety. Financial stress can also look like what we spoke about: income loss, job loss, even just that reduced hours at work, the reduced pay, or even making that tough decision on what you want to use your money or your credit on. So even the decision to use your credit to pay your rent, this may affect your mental health, which is totally normal and totally okay. And, just the thought about even being in debt can create mental health distress as well. And all of this may be part of this new normal for you, or I should say new normal, something you're not very comfortable with. So while I don't have the answers, while Chris and I don't have the answers, while we don't have these quick fixes, I want to explore this idea about how important it is to take care of your mental health during these times of uncertainty. And the pandemic has created a lot of challenges on so many levels. And it's probably in levels that you haven't really thought about. So I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. There's this, emotional, personal, family stress. So what does that look like for you financially? Were you the sole provider in the home and have a family to take care of? Now, what's your situation look like? Or maybe you're the only one to take care of yourself, but you're feeling very overwhelmed, feeling very isolated. And like Chris talked about earlier, maybe you're feeling this sense of grief with your identity about things you lost, things you had to give up. This is really unfair. I mean, why is it that I can't work? Why is it that I'm placed in this kind of situation? You may be feeling this loss of identity within your place in society, and within, if you're working even a part-time job, that's different, or even with others, your friends, your family. There is a very strong connection to your financial well-being and its connection to your mental health. So we're just talking about that. Well, now there's another component that's out there, and I would say it's that community, it's that societal stress, it's that questioning. Well, and I can say this from a personal perspective. I really like to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. That helps me with my mental health. And to me, that's a need. But can I afford to go back to the gym? Can I be with these larger groups? Do I feel safe? So you've got that on top of it. And then we've got the media all around us, consuming us. So you put all these stressors all together, from coming everywhere else, and you've got this accumulation of stress. So I want to give you just an example, just a quick example. So let's think about it. So a once simple task of grocery shopping, or we're going to our local convenience store, is now filled with a bunch of obstacles. So the first thing you're probably thinking about, I know for myself, how much money can I spend? Like Chris was talking about, how much money am I going to spend at going groceries? Well, now you're faced with lineups. You're got to remember your mask. You've constantly thinking about physical distancing, and then you're juggling, what do I need? What am I here to pick up? There's that person right there. And then can we talk about the overall uneasiness that you feel through the whole process? So we just connected how a simple task of going to grocery shopping or going to that local convenience store, and the finances, and how this connects to your mental health. So it's so much larger than what we perceive it to be. So it's something that to me, it's really important that we try to stay as connected as we can to ourselves, and just give yourself a break. and be patient with yourself and know that there's so much going on that's larger than you. And it's okay to feel this way.
Christine, I like that so much, especially because, in this realm of taking assessments and being like, where are you at? And just what are some of these emotions? What are the trigger points for you in kind of some of those examples that you gave? Because I think it relates really specifically to how you use your money. If you are somebody that is so uncomfortable in a grocery store and that's causing an immense amount of stress, perhaps the permission to look at grocery delivery is something that makes a lot of sense for you. And so this might be something that from the outside, you would imagine the specter of somebody being like, you're not working and you're doing grocery delivery. How could you? Doesn't matter. The specter doesn't matter. Being able to create your own context for what you need is really, really important. And that just, I think, is a good example of how taking the time to assess, kind of both on the financial side, but also on just your mental health side, can give you some tools to say, you know what? This is really important as I'm looking through this. Because for me, the biggest benefit to getting your hands into your finances a little bit and taking a little bit more control is to create permission to spend. And I know that that's a weird thing for a financial planner to say, because I think that everybody thinks we want you to save all your money and just have a lot of money. Money is all meant to be spent. I want you to have permission to spend, and to have that connected to what you need, what's sustainable, and to your health, both mental, physical, spiritual, the kind of the fullest expansion of that. So I think that assessment is a really important thing to take some time and think about. And it does connect to finances in a really intimate way. One tool that I really like as well, I'll just add, as you're going through your spending, I blatantly stole this from a woman named Shannon Lee Simmons, who's a financial planner in Toronto. She wrote a great book called Worry Free Money, which is available at the library if you're interested in reading it. She talks about emotional return on investment from your spending. So looking through your spending, and you've got these numbers, and instead of thinking about how much it costs only, but think about what you get out of that emotionally. You could also look at this from health-wise, whatever the lens you wanted to say, and rate it from 1 to 5 in terms of how much return you get on that purchase.